the comma splice. If you have not watched the lesson on semicolons yet, please stop this video, go back, watch semicolons first, because some of the terms I use here are defined in semicolons. A semicolon is used to connect two related independent clauses. We remember that clauses are groups of words related that have a subject and a verb. An independent clause can stand alone as a sentence taken out of a sentence with a period put at the end of an independent clause. It can stand alone as a sentence without anything being added or subtracted. Okay. A comma splice is when a comma is used instead of a semicolon between independent clauses in a sentence. This is an error. It is incorrect to use a comma where you should have used a semicolon. If both sides of the sentence can stand alone, you must use a semicolon. The best way to proofread for this is to go through and check all your commas. Let's do that with this sentence. We have one comma right here. So what we need to look at is the first half of the sentence before the comma and the second half of the sentence that's after the comma, and see if both of those are independent clauses. All right. Let's look at the second part first. You must use a semicolon. That is an independent clause. If I take it out of the sentence, put a period at the end, stands alone. But look at the first part. If both sides of the sentence can stand alone, that's a dependent clause. It is not an independent clause, it's a dependent clause. This will not stand alone as a sentence. If both sides of the sentence can stand alone, period, is totally incorrect. There needs to be more, if this, then that. So here, the comma is correct. You wouldn't need a semicolon. Let's look at this example. I saw a robin today. It must be spring. Okay, so when you're proofreading, you see the comma, you look at the comma. Second half of the sentence, it must be spring. Well, that's an independent clause. Stands alone if you take it out of the sentence. I saw a robin today. That's an independent clause as well. Therefore, this comma here is a comma splice. So to correct it, we replace the comma with a semicolon. I saw a robin today. It must be spring. Both sides of the sentence can stand alone as a sentence, and the first part is related to the second part. I know it must be spring because I saw the robin. Very often when you have two independent clauses, or more than two, in a sentence, you have a run-on sentence if those independent clauses are connected using commas instead of semicolons. So you've all kind of run into one of those sentences. If you haven't written it, you've read it, where it just seems to keep going forever and it has all these subjects and verbs in it and you get confused. So we're going to talk right now about correcting a run-on sentence that has just two independent clauses in it. If you go back to the lesson on semicolons, I talk about how to fix sentences with more than two independent clauses in them. But for our purposes right now, we're just going to talk about a run-on sentence because it has two independent clauses. So one way to correct is, as we've discussed, to replace the comma with a semicolon. Let's look at this sentence. A cardinal sitting on the feeder is eating. The seeds must taste good. Well, it's starting, even though it looks a little short, this is a run-on sentence because it's got these ideas in it and you can't quite tell what goes where. Is he eating the seeds? Is eating? What's going on? So to correct this run-on sentence, you want to look at each of your commas. The first comma, look at the phrase that comes before it, a cardinal. That's not even a clause. It's just a phrase. It's two words, a cardinal. That can't stand alone. Okay. Let's look at the second comma. A cardinal sitting on the feeder. That's not an independent clause. It can't stand alone either. Look to the third comma. A cardinal sitting on the feeder is eating. There's an independent clause. Okay, so we know the first part is independent. Now we look at the second. The seeds must taste good. Well, yes, that can stand alone as a sentence as well. So how do you correct it? making sure that there are independent clauses on each side of the semicolon, you you replace the comma with a semicolon, right there. A cardinal sitting on the feeder is eating, semicolon, the seeds must taste good. Independent clauses on each side of the semicolon, you've corrected the sentence properly. The second way to correct a run-on sentence is to make two sentences, or more if you need to, but for our purposes, two sentences. The young skunks got in our garbage cans. They are cute, but they made a mess. Comma. What comes before the young skunks got in our garbage cans? That's an independent clause. They are cute, but they made a mess. That's an independent clause. But say I don't want to put a semicolon in here. Say I want to keep the ideas separate. Then I just replace the comma with a period. So if you see the notation comma splice, know that the other option you have, other than a semicolon, is to replace that comma with a period and capitalize the word of the starting sentence, the following starting sentence. So here we have two sentences. The young skunks got in our garbage cans, period. They are cute, but they made a mess. Okay, so just remember when you see the phrase comma splice on your paper, it means you've incorrectly joined two independent clauses with a comma. And you can correct by either replacing comma with the semicolon or making the run-on sentence into two or more sentences.